Yes, I think every GCC leader of all shape and size, maturity level uh, is working or will be working with some of the SIs or the partner organizations. But the circumstances they leverage the partners is very different. See, the primary business case of having a GCC in India is to have an in-house competency building. You should have talent in-house. Okay. So 90% of the times, the GCC leader or the global HQ will prefer to have in-house talent in the GCC because that was the primary business case, right?
Of establishing GCC. Yeah.
Yeah. So GCCs who are in the setup phase or who are in the growth phase, say 0 to 300 people, GCC, it's highly unlikely that they will leverage the SIs or the partner companies because now they have to prove the business case, and the business case is that get the talent in house.
Got
They
it.
will only leverage the CSIs. Say there is an offer decline, and the global IT roadmap is not progressing because the GCC leader in India is not able to have people on time because of the offer declines, because of the competitive job market. So in that case, they will go to SI and say that, hey, can you get us some people and help us out? So it's more a firefighting circumstance in which a growing GCC will leverage an SI. Now coming to established GCC, who is say 1,500 or 3,000 people, been there for 5, 7 years, they have a different circumstance to leverage an SI. They will leverage an SI whenever there is a big project that is being transitioned to the center and there is no bandwidth available and they can't afford 3 months of the time, selection time, notice period to create a team, to build a team from ground up. In that case, for those time sensitive projects or a fixed bid projects, they will reach out to the SIs and say that, hey, give us a team, give us a team, okay, so that we can work on this project. And after a few months or years, what will happen? The priority of the GCC leader will be to request a SI or the partner organization to rebadge the team and bring them in house. So I've seen that my peer leaders. I've heard from them that now the strategy is getting changed. If they're having say 10% of their headcount as temp staff, they would get some good suggestions from the HQ that why don't you bring those people in house? So they would go and ask for rebadging of those employees, make them permanent in-house employees. From the cost standpoint, also what I've seen is uh, there is not much cost difference between having temp staff versus the permanent. So if you have a visibility for longer term, GCCs always prefer to have the permanent staff unless you are into a firefighting circumstance that I mentioned before, because the cost difference is not there. In some cases, temp staff turn out to be more costlier than uh, permanent staff because if you are having a big GCC of 1,500 people or 2,000 people, the operating expenses you're going to spread to
Right.
2,000 people. So the salaries will be pretty much the same, but the markup that you would be giving to SI will be much higher than the operating expenses per FTE. Okay, because it will be spread across 2,000 people. You will have economies of scale. So I have seen the strategy shift wherein now the GCs are preferring to rebadge employees from the SIs to in-house. In some cases, the SIs will not agree. Then, yeah, wherever possible, that is a focus I have seen right now.
Got it, Abhishek. I think when I've seen multiple news, like whether Infosys or even multiple SIs, now they started working on a bot project, right? I think
Yeah.
in the very beginning itself, it's build, operate, transfer, right? That model, very set and agreed in the very beginning rather than getting into the discussion way later, right? So do you think that that is going to be kind of a mainstream? Every other SI, now they have a GCC establishment team, right? So that they can, for their client, they will advise, establish GCC and hand over, right? Do you think it is a viable and going to be encouraging for the employees also from the employee perspective?
Um, well, what I believe is a GCC. setting up a GCC has a number of stages, number of moving parts, right? You need to write the business case, you need to set up the office space infrastructure, you need to hire talent, you need to build the culture, you need to transition the global functions to the center, you need to define the KPIs, you need to do the delivery, you need to grow horizontally and vertically. So these are the 7 8 moving parts. I
Understood.
think the SIs, depending on where their core is, will have a play in transitioning, say, the IT function, providing the IT workforce to the GCC. Naturally, they will not have an expertise to write the business case to have a GCC. They can't help the GCC leader to build the office space, right?
Got it.
Or hire talent for different functions. Like if
Got it.
finance is also part of it, HR is also part of it, function to be transitioned, then your SI will not have the core expertise in those areas. So I think SIs need to look out of these 7 to 8 moving parts where their core competency is, where they can have a bigger strategic play and focus on that particular stage of setting up the GCC. And there are companies like the managed office workspace companies who also want to tap into this GCC wave. They also want to have mandates to set up the GCC, but they don't have a core of transitioning the functions. They don't have a core
Yeah.
to supply IT talent or workforce to the GCC. So they will focus on the moving part, which is their code, which is relevant for them, setting up the office infrastructure or getting the right compliances, government relationships. So I think different vendors or partners have something
Trying to approach,
something
yeah,
to
the
get.
whole animal from, yeah, yeah. Multiple HR recruitment companies also now offline
RPOs.
reached out to me.
Yeah. So RPOs cannot set up the office space, but they can
Correct.
tap into one part of this GCC setup cycle, right?
All
So
right.
this is how I see it. A lot of SIs, a lot of real estate companies, RPO companies will try to tap into this GCC wave, but in my opinion, it will be more practical to tap on one or two areas which is your core rather than getting the end-to-end mandate for setting up a GCC.